Greetings, gamers. Tim here again, and forgive my absence for the last couple of days. Saturday is my big gaming day, so I tend to be busy. And Saturdays I have other things, such as a church meeting that I go to. And I just didn't get around to getting videos made over the weekend. It happens. I'm sorry that I didn't get them made, but you know, it just happens. So today is August 29th, 2017, and we missed the 26th, the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. So that's technically 4 days. The 26th is which RPG provides the most useful resources. That's kind of a challenge because some resources are more useful than others. And some resources are just add-ons that do not have any specific additional qualities that make the add-on give any depth to the game. For the longest time, I would have said second edition AD&D because it produced so much stuff. But a lot of that was extraneous for most people. It was not something they needed. It helped. They were the first ones to do spell cards, for example, that had a spell and had the details listed. So a wizard just had to have the cards out. They didn't have to have the whole game book out. 5th edition is producing a far lesser stream of material, but they're doing, a little bit of that. But they really can't hold a clue to Pathfinder. I'm not a Pathfinder guy. It really just doesn't work for me. It is too heavy a rule system for my personal preferences. But some of its support material, especially some of its general support material like Pathfinder pawns, those things are fantastic for any game. They actually add value across the board. And Pathfinder, most of the rules are OGL, so because they're derived from the SRD and the OGL, they are open content and they have them on their wiki. That is collated by someone, and so the books are themselves sort of a depth of additional material, because not everything is open content, but enough of what they produce is open content that you can play the game pretty reasonably without having to buy any books. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing. I definitely prefer books if I'm going to be playing a game for any length of time. But sometimes there was just a moment or two when I just needed to look up a quick rule and it was easier to search on the internet on the Pathfinder wiki than to borrow a friend's book and look it up in there. They were running it. I wasn't. Most of the rules were on them, so not a big deal, but it definitely showed me that Pathfinder can be a little weighty for me. But the material they produce, just all the additional little bits of material and their treatment of the material and their treatment just of everything is very, very well done. I have to give my accolades to the people behind Pathfinder for just the sheer volume, the creativity, and the ideas they've had for producing products that are useful to basically Pathfinder as well as other gamers in general. And I can't think of many other games that do that produce materials that you can just pick up and plug into another game relatively easily. But that being said, most of them are Pathfinder specific. But still, it's just a huge amount of resources that you can draw upon. And so in best support, in terms of best support material, they win. There's just no comparison. They deserve to be where they are in the gaming industry because of the hard work they had put into it. And you know, this is a game I don't even care for that much, you know. I mean, I could be talked into playing it, but you have to try really, really hard. But I do respect the people behind it a great deal and appreciate their, you know, products for the quality and the general support they provide. There's nothing to be said beyond that. Now, that was the 26th. For the 27th, it says, what are your essential tools for good gaming? That one's a little easier for me. My essential tools are a notepad and a pencil, and me. Beyond that, I don't need anything. I can write up a playable game in 10 to 15 minutes. It's perfectly functional. If I have one, you know, at least a little bit brewing in my head. If I don't have something brewing in my head, well, that I'm sick and you need to take me to the hospital because I always have lots of ideas. But those are the essential items. Me, you know, for my games, and dice and pencils. Well, not even dice, but pencils and paper. Dice is kind of iffy because I have games that don't use dice or require dice in any way. They've either got a different random mechanic or they don't have a random mechanic at all. For example, I play Marble Saga pretty regularly. It uses cards for its random mechanic. The cards were included in the basic box set that was released, and I've played with those for, well, since 1999 when it came out, and I've been using that game ever since. I've had to replace my rule book a couple times, but usually I just passed on a slightly worn book to somebody else and got me a slightly better quality one. So that's it. All I need really is pencil, paper, and me. My imagination, my ability to speak. Those are my tools that are essential for gaming. For me. For other people, I could make suggestions. A good place to draw out maps, you know, either if you draw them on paper or you draw them on specific paper like grid paper, or you draw them on a dry marker, dry erase board, or you have a mat that you can draw on with water-soluble markers. It just, whatever works for you in that situation. And sometimes, yes, describing things isn't enough for some people. They want to see it, you know, visually on something to give them an idea of the relative location of everything. But I don't tend to need it myself, and I tend to try and describe things clearly enough to other people, and I don't always, but I try to, so that they know where they're standing in relation to everything else. And part of the reason that's important is because it allows them to choose actions and make decisions. But I also I don't use tactical movement in games. My rules for movement tend to be, you know, you can move X amount from here to here. You know, if you want to make a running jump across the room and grab the chandelier and swing to make that, or if you want to come in down a wet slip and slide, depending on the game we're playing. That's okay too. And that is also one of the things that is, to me, important, is letting people have the freedom of movement to do these action scenes the way they want. And that's it for that day. And then we get to the 28th. What film or series is the biggest source of quotes for your group? Well, we have a general geek consensus, not Greek consensus, but a general geek consensus. And so quotes come from all sorts of different deep corners of the world. Sometimes they're Star Trek, sometimes they're Star Wars. Surprisingly, Monty Python jokes are light with my current group. That doesn't mean we don't get them, but a lot of times previous games that we have had provide source for quotes of material. It's how this particular group works. Is, a previous game, something funny came up and they drag it through 2 or 3 other games because they thought it was funny. And, for example, lions and jackals were involved. Comes up fairly often because a character I was playing in a game was explaining something to someone, and he said lions and jackals did such and such, and it went on for a bit, and then another character came up and basically mocked him and said lions and jackals were involved, and that was his entire explanation. And it was funny, it caught on, and it's been carried for a bit since then. Not recently, but, eventually all quotes fade and new ones are generated. Now we are to the 29th. What has been the best run RPG Kickstarter you have backed? Oh, that's a tough one. That is a real tough one. What is the best Kickstarter that I have backed? I'm going to exclude the non-gaming ones because there have been a couple for comic properties that I have put money into a little bit and were handled fairly well, but the best handled, that's really a challenge because most of the ones I've put money in have been very well handled, even through some difficult situations with the creators struggling to get product out and the like, but probably the best run one is a toss-up between Tunnels and Trolls and Wearing the Cape, the role-playing game. Tunnels and Trolls, there was some silence in there for a bit, but as they got nearer to actually produced product, they kept us alerted of where they were fairly often, fairly regularly. Here's shipment 1, here's shipment 2, here are what we're shipping overseas, etc., etc., etc. And Wearing the Cape was just handled exquisitely. There wasn't a need for a lot of updates because it proceeded fairly well. It's not entirely finished. Not every product is out the door yet, but they still keep people in the know. And that's a very good Kickstarter habit to have, because they've got a couple of products that weren't already thoroughly written and play tested that they're still working on as add-ons. Those were two of the best ones that I know There might be another one or two out there that are comparable that I'm just not bringing to mind. But they, I can't think of them. They just escaped my mind and memory. That happens a lot these days. You get old and it just flows out one ear and into the ocean. But I think those were the best two. I still get updates for one, and I'm not even sure which one that is, but I still get updates from it. Even though everything has gone out, they're just like, "Hi, how's it going, people?" I'm like, y'all pretty much done everything. You're just trying to stay in touch and keep us interested. But the best run ones were, really memorable, even if my memory can't pull them forward. So, please go ahead and share yours, on this video, beneath this video, because you may have had one that either I didn't kickstart, or I wasn't involved in, or I was and just don't remember, and you want to share it, please do so. Because when the well-run ones work, it's good to know. I know of good ones that I did not back. Gallant Knight Games ran Tiny Frontiers, and it was, from what I understand, a very well run Kickstarter campaign. The person behind it is somebody I know personally through online sources, and I couldn't have expected, or I should have expected that to be how it was going to go. I couldn't have predicted anything that would get in the way of them moving forward. They built momentum fast and just steamrolled along. But, they weren't one I kicked into, so my actual involvement was limited. People may have different opinions. So that leaves us with today. What has been the best? Wait, that's where we're at. Wait, that's it. We're done. Oh, great. That leaves us tomorrow and Thursday. Yep, tomorrow and Thursday. So, yep. Pretty much that's where we're at. We finished those pretty quick. At least I didn't spend 20 minutes talking about one subject. So, we're good. Peace, good gaming, much love. My heart goes out to those of you who are struggling with so many different things, with cancer, because I just heard about somebody I care about quite deeply as an internet friend dealing with it, and another one is dealing with it, and cancer sucks. That's all I can say. And that's not to mention all the people suffering under political ideology that hurts them in the long run. And I'm not picking a side in these videos and saying, oh, we blame X. Just, there's a lot of hurtful stuff out there that we have to deal with as a regular basis. That's, varied with humanity throughout our various incarnations of government. And then I'm in Texas, so I'm safe. It's sunny outside. It's beautiful, cloudless sky. We got rain yesterday, really quickly, but it was just a really, like, one big dump. Took maybe a minute and a half and dumped water everywhere, and but it's nowhere near what they're suffering in Houston and the surrounding areas. They are just in a terrible state. I mean, to be fair, they're built on the edge or on top of a marshland, and that's where most of that water normally goes, is drained into the marsh. But because we built there, there's not as much space for it to drain, which I'm not blaming anyone for that. You know, people tend to live near the sea. I happen to live in the desert, which is, for the record, I could fit the entire state of Arizona between me and the storm that caused the terrible mess down there. And my heart hurts for all those people. It hurts for their pets and family members that are you know, struggling through it. It's just a terrible thing. And, you know, and here I am sitting high and dry in the desert. If we get that wet, it would be a nightmare, you know, too, because, you know, here, when that much water hits the ground, it's going to soak into everything, and we have no sort of preparedness at all for those kinds of situations because we don't see it, ever. We occasionally see flooding, but, you know, from thunderstorms, but we don't see that kind of nightmarish flooding. So if y'all want to help out, you know, any cause, you know, whether it's helping animals, whether it's helping cancer survivors or people suffering from cancer, whether it's helping with the Houston Relief Fund or the other nearby cities that are inundated because of the hurricane, please do so. I can't make it any more heartfelt that there is just so much going on in this world that is difficult. And that's for someone who has a relatively normal brain that doesn't process the way my brain processes information. And my brain processes information, and I have anxiety. I have other things that go on with my life, like the bipolar depression. And to see this stuff happening to people, and I mean any people, you know, whether they're, you know, Americans and Texans and, you know, in my state next door or across the world, breaks my heart. And I'm surprised by what I'm hearing in the news, like Mexico is offering to help us. And Mexico has never been the most, you know, at least in my lifetime, wealthy nation. And I don't know where their money is now. I mean, personally, I don't know where it's at now in terms of financial security. But they're offering to help us. And that says a lot to me about the quality of people that live in Mexico and live, you know. But I don't want to get started on immigration and immigration law. I do not want to get started on that because that's a rant and a half. I mean, because all of us here are immigrants. All of us. I mean, humans didn't begin here. The Garden of Eden was not in this country, if that's what you believe. Evolution did not occur in this country, if that's what you believe. It occurred somewhere else. You know, and if whatever you believe about humanity's origin, if you believe in Ash and Ember, or Ember, I don't remember which that is, whatever origin story for humanity that you think is most appropriate, we're very, very sure that it didn't happen on this continent, that it happened overseas, most likely in Africa. The Tigris and Euphrates River are one of our first and some of our oldest artifacts are pulled from there. So, anyway, sorry. my ancestors have been here a long time, but I'm trying not to rant about it. Forgive me for that. Aside, just go on about your business and ignore it. Bless you. Stay safe. Much love. Agape love. I'm not lusting after specific members of you out there. For the record, it's more of a brotherly love towards people that I have, and my faith generally has. But we're all in this together, one way or another. All of us are on this rock. So we've got to reach out when we can. That's all I can say. Bless you. May whatever faith you follow give you strength. If you're much into science and don't believe in the various faith things, may your studies go well on the beginnings of things and the endings of things and how things work. I like science, by the way, even though I'm a religious person. I believe in the scientific method, and I believe in science quite well, quite factually. I tend to follow it. I know it's not perfect, but that's the whole purpose of science, is to hone its edge, to make better and more important discoveries about everything. It's sort of a trait of the human race. We have a few of them. The three most common ones are: we like to make friends with things that are nothing like us. And I mean things that are nothing like us. Snakes and spiders and, fish. We like to make friends with those. And we like furry animals, too. We like to make friends with those. We also like to make friends, that aren't just like us, but are still human beings. 2, we're really curious. I mean, really, really curious. We can be talked into doing things just out of sheer curiosity, like, hey, I think that rock's hot. Touch it. Touch it, burn yourself. He's like, see if it's, and then your friend goes, see, it may have cooled down. Touch it again. And somebody will touch it again to see if it's cooled down. Even if it's been a millisecond. But that's just human nature. We're wildly curious, and we like to make friends with things. We also like to pick fights, but that's not one of our more common traits because it's not consistent across all cultures. But we've domesticated dogs twice that we know of. I'm sure we've domesticated dogs more often than that throughout history, or dogs' ancestors actually. But you know what I mean. So yeah, we like friends, especially when we can make them ourselves. Anyway, take care of yourselves.